Hi Tanya, you did a nice job with your overall photo, and certainly taking inspiration from Edward Weston's Pepper series was a great choice. He has a number of them. I think arguably this number 30 is the most famous. However, there are a number of others in the series, and as we can imply by the name, there's many that he photographed over the course of several days, and I think weeks actually. The difficulty is that the image you chose was not actually one of Weston's. It is something that was inspired by Weston. So you can see it came from this DP Challenge website, and it's called Weston Pepper number 6, or Pepper '06 rather, which probably indicates the date that it was created. However, it was made by this Notes in Stones person, and not Weston itself. That said, it's an inspiration piece, and so whether you use one of Weston's actual photos or one that was inspired by Weston for this assignment, it's really okay. Your end result probably wouldn't have changed that much. You're certainly not going to find super funky shaped peppers like this in a regular grocery store on any given day. There are a couple of things that I want you to notice here between the two. So with the one you took inspiration from, we have really nice sharp focus here, and the focus kind of falls off. With Edward Weston's peppers, you have really nice detail throughout. The way he created these was to put everything into a funnel, and that's kind of what we see here. And he used a nice soft sort of lighting. Now it's interesting to note that with Weston, he was a member of F64. He was a good friend of Ansel Adams, and where Adams, in one of the commonalities they shared rather, was that they liked lots and lots of detail. So the stories vary here. In Weston's own daybooks, we say he says it was a 6-minute exposure. His grandson says it could have actually been a 4 to 6 hour exposure, because he used a very, very, very small aperture that he would have actually made for his own camera. The difficulty that you get, the difficulty is the closer you get to the pepper, the shallower the depth of field is. So he made his own aperture to kind of overcome that, and that would make for very long exposures. Now, what I was getting to before is the interesting thing between Adams and Weston is, even though they both prized detail throughout, their lighting is very, very different. Adams has very high contrast lighting, where Weston seems to embrace more of the soft lighting. And so that's just kind of one of the interesting differences between the group that liked basically the same style of photography. Here, great detail throughout. Again, here a little bit of soft follow-up. And the reason that I point that out is because that you said in your image you actually went to trouble to kind of blur the softness a little bit, or to blur the outer edges a little bit to match the pepper that you're taking from inspiration. Had you found one of Weston's actual photos, then that would have been a step that you wouldn't have actually needed to do for your photograph. That said, your blending of the blur is actually very well done. In terms of post-processing, the one thing that I would suggest that is a little bit off is that we have pretty good lighting, in that we have, even on this far edge, we can still see the difference between the edge of the pepper and the black background, where with your image we really start to lose it as we get to this side of the image. A little bit of a reflector, and this could be anything just from a white sheet of office paper, would have bounced a very little bit of light back to that side, and it would have given you the perfect level of light for this image. Take-home lessons: make sure that your lighting is spot on. I think you're pretty close. You have a little bit more of a directional light source in that it falls off pretty quick, so you can see where it hits the edges. It's bright and it falls off pretty quick to give these nice dark shadows. That's not necessarily a bad thing. When we look at Weston's work, we absolutely see nice dark shadows, and so I think that fits well. The other thing is, as you're doing your research, make sure that you are getting your source material from the source that you think you are. You really need to take that extra moment to find out if, in this example, Weston's photograph was actually made by Weston or inspired by Weston. When you're working with famous people and famous photographers in particular, you'll find a lot of work that's inspired by that will get kind of caught up in those Google results. You want to take the extra step to find out where it came from. And that's really as simple as doing a Google image search. And so if you can go back, you can see how I did it. If you go to Google, you can click on the search by image. You can upload the image. It's just a matter of finding that, letting it do its thing, and right away it pops up with very few examples, so you know that that's a pretty good indicator that it wasn't Weston. There's only one that matches it exactly, and that's how I found it from this DP challenge. Let me know if you have any questions. Overall, nice job with your photograph.